The system had never offered her a choice before. Every quest Kira had received since the night on the rooftop was framed as an instruction. Do this, at this standard, within this time. The blue interface didn't negotiate. It assigned. She had come to understand that as the shape of the thing. Not a companion, not a guide. A set of demands delivered in clinical language, with consequences attached, so the word optional stopped her. She stared at the panel in the low light of the barracks. The other recruits were sleeping or pretending to. The word sat in the interface the way a wrong note sits in a chord. Technically there, technically fine, and yet wrong enough that she couldn't stop hearing it. Optional quest available. Tap to view. She tapped. The terms were precise. The system always was. Complete the upcoming navigation exercise without assisting any other recruit. Solo metrics only. No deviation from independent performance. Fail the objective. Assist anyone for any reason. And concealment, rank 2, would be forfeited. Permanently. No recovery path listed. No partial credit. The rank she had earned under the scaffold, the one that had cost her a fractured rib and 3 days of hiding the way she moved, gone. The reward for success was body hardening, rank 3, and a partial reveal of origin entry 3. A preview only, the interface specified. Not the full unlock. She read it twice. The system had never offered a preview before either. It was being generous with one hand while threatening the other. She didn't know what to do with that. She filed it under things the system does that she doesn't understand yet, which was a category she kept adding to and never clearing. She closed the interface and lay down on her bunk and didn't sleep. In the morning, Rio found her at mess. She knew his name now. The recruit she had pulled clear of the scaffold in the trial grounds. She knew it because he'd found reasons to be nearby since then, in the subtle, hopeful way recruits had when they owed something to someone who didn't want to be owed. He wanted to say thank you. She had been not letting him. He sat across from her with his tray. She ate without looking up. He said her name, Voss, in the careful way people said it when they were trying to open a door they weren't sure was actually there. She gave him nothing back. Not unfriendly, not hostile, just occupied, just not for this. He left. She watched her food and counted the cost. Being warm with Rio would mean Rio watching her. Rio watching her meant another set of eyes on how she moved, how she reacted, what she reached for when something went wrong. She was collecting debts she couldn't afford to repay. The system asked her to perform alone. She had already been doing that. She had started keeping a private ledger. Not written anywhere, she didn't write things down, had learned years ago in the gutter district that written things existed in ways unwritten things didn't. But in the back of her thinking, she had begun tracking what each ability cost her. Body hardening took time. After a full activation, her body needed 38 minutes to stop performing the recovery. 38 minutes in which she had to look like someone who hadn't just done something that shouldn't be possible for a person her size. The physical tax was manageable. The concealment tax on top of it was the problem. Concealment cost social access. Every time she deliberately made herself smaller, less memorable, less present. Every time she let something slide rather than respond, stepped back rather than forward, chose invisible over seen, she was paying for the system with her ability to exist among other people. The math worked. It worked every time. And every time it worked, the person paying it was someone who had fewer resources than the last time she'd paid. She thought, the system builds you up by steadily spending you down. She didn't know what the end of that accounting looked like. The exercise brief came at 2100. Night navigation, the trial grounds, live configured, amber perimeter lighting only, obstacles at actual weight and resistance, 40 recruits, 2 exit markers, individual metrics recorded, no squad scoring. Oren stood at the front of the formation in the dark and delivered this without inflection, the way she delivered everything, as information, not as preparation. She didn't tell them to be careful. She told them the course parameters and the time window and that performance data would be reviewed by the full command track. Then she stepped back. The recruits checked their gear. Some of them looked at each other. Kira checked no one. She felt the quest notification settle at the corner of her interface. A small pulse. Objective active. She acknowledged it without looking at it and joined the formation line. The horn sounded, and she ran. She had mapped the course during the daylight exercise rotation. 3 days of observation, routes memorized, load-bearing grades identified, the sections where footing went wrong cataloged and filed. She ran the best line through it in the dark, efficient alone, cutting the curves tighter than the other recruits because she knew where the curves went before she reached them. The quest timer ticked at the corner of her vision. She let it. 0 assists logged. On pace. The system was watching her the way it always watched, waiting, counting, ready to balance. She ran clean, she ran alone. It was the same thing she'd been doing since the ghost shift at Sector 9, the same arithmetic. Stay small, stay separate, collect no debts. She was very good at this. Maren was in the 3rd section of the course on the approach grade when it went wrong. Kira saw it. A boot catching on a half-buried cable marker, the weight going the wrong way, the knee absorbing what the ankle should have. Not catastrophic, a bad sprain. The kind of thing that made the next 200 meters difficult instead of impossible. Maren stumbled, caught herself on one hand, got back up, already falling behind the pack. The quest notification pulsed. Objective active. 0 assists logged. Kira was 10 meters ahead. She looked back once. The course continued ahead of her. The exit marker was 4 minutes away at current pace. The requirement was still active. This was what she had agreed to. Solo metrics, unassisted, the concealment rank as the forfeit. She had read the terms. She had thought about them for an entire night. She had made a decision. She kept running. Her boot hit the extraction marker with 11 seconds to spare. She stood at the line in the dark, breathing controlled, heart rate already dropping. The quest panel was waiting. Objective, met, confirm completion, the body hardening rank and the partial origin reveal sitting behind it. One confirmation away. She didn't press confirm. She stood at the line. Behind her, in the dark of the course, 40 recruits were finishing at varying paces. She could hear the sounds of it, the effort, the uneven footfalls, the occasional voice. She stood there and breathed and thought about Maren on the approach grade, getting back up on one hand, already 3 minutes behind. She had made a decision. She was allowed to make a different one. She turned around. No quest was running. No system prompt guided her. The optional banner had gone dim the moment she stepped back past the extraction marker, the offer quietly withdrawn. There was no instruction for what she was doing now. The interface had nothing to say about it. She found Maren in the 4th section, moving slow, one-sided. She fell in beside her, took the weight on the left, and they covered the last 100 meters together in silence. No conversation, no warmth, just done. At the extraction marker, Maren looked at her, said nothing. Kira let go and walked away. In the barracks, after the debrief, she opened her interface. The blue layout arranged itself in the familiar order. Body hardening, concealment, origin tab. She scanned it the way she scanned the ration schedules back home, looking for what had changed, looking for the gap. She found it where concealment should have been, not a notification, not a penalty message, not even a note in the ability log, just concealment. And then the space where rank 2 used to sit, the rank she had carried out from under the scaffold, gone, without a word. She checked it again. It was still gone. The system had never warned her it was going to punish her. It never had. She had made a decision, and the system had made a different one, and neither of them had told the other what they were thinking. And now the balance had been settled, and the account had been adjusted, and there was nothing more to say about it. She sat on her bunk and thought about this carefully. The system didn't announce its corrections. It simply ran the ledger, and the ledger was always up to date, and what was in the ledger was what was true. She had chosen Maren over the rank. The system agreed she had made a choice, and it had taken the thing she'd used to make it. She thought, this means it was always watching. Every ability she had used or refused to use or used differently than it specified, the system was recording all of it. There was no moment she was not being assessed. The optional quest had been a test of the ledger, not of her navigation. Origin. Entry 3 pulsed once and went still locked. The preview she had turned back from, she would not see it today. Fine. She had other things to think about. Dax's interface had changed. She noticed it at dinner, 2 tables over. The red ambient glow that he carried like a temperature differential was different, higher, more defined. He sat with his tray and didn't announce anything, but the quality of the light around him had shifted the way water shifts when you heat it. Not suddenly, not visibly, but measurably different once you'd seen it enough times to know what you were looking for. Stage 5. She didn't say anything. He didn't look at her, but she had been watching Dax the way she watched everything that mattered, with the part of her that filed things without reacting to them. And what she filed now was, his face when Stage 5 arrived did not look like what she had expected winning to look like. She ate her meal and said nothing and added it to the ledger. The alarm sounded at 312. She knew immediately it was not a drill. Not because she had some soldier's instinct she hadn't earned, she hadn't not yet, but because 3 weeks ago, on her second day at Base Sigma, a veteran corporal named Arash had told her during a ration queue that the base had 2 alarm tones, one for drills, one for the other thing. He hadn't elaborated on what the other thing was. He hadn't needed to. This was the other tone. The barracks went red, recruits up, moving. She was already on her feet, boots on, reading the room the way she read every room. Exits, positions, who was fast and who was slow. Oren appeared in the doorway. Her face in the red light was set in a way that had no room in it for reassurance. She began issuing orders. The outer perimeter sensors were reading something that didn't move like a probe. Kira learned this from the movement she could see through the base's surveillance array. The tactical displays mounted at the squad staging points showed the signatures, not the slow sweep and pause of a scout unit, not the hover and scan pattern she had come to recognize from the ridge sightings. These signatures moved low and fast, 4 distinct points of contact, coordinated, sequential, the kind of movement that had a specific purpose built into it, not an exploratory one. She heard the word going through the command track like a current running through a wire. Strike unit. She filed it. Strike meant combat configured. Combat configured meant what came through the perimeter tonight had not come to look. Oren was already pointing. She did not explain. There was nothing to explain. Combat stations and the recruits who couldn't function without context would have to function without it. In the breach sector, smoke was coming up fast. Concussion charges from the EDC perimeter squad, the smell of it sharp and chemical in the night air. She was in cover position behind a concrete barrier, low, watching the EDC line hold. Her interface was running its offer. Body hardening, speed burst, evade protocol. It ran them in rotation, patient, waiting for a yes. She declined them in rotation. The Varek unit was somewhere in the smoke ahead. She could hear the sound of it, a low mechanical pressure that didn't belong in any sound she associated with normal combat. The EDC squad was pushing back. She kept her head down and watched the geometry of the firefight and tried to understand where the threat was coming from. Then a soldier went down, 3 meters, exposed. The squad's momentum had moved past him. They were advancing and he was behind them, and there was smoke between them and no one was looking back. Kira was the closest body to him by 15 meters in any direction. The interface offered body hardening again. She activated it. Just enough. She crossed the 3 meters in the smoke and got him behind the barrier, and he was breathing when she put him down. No one had seen exactly what she'd done. The smoke was thick and the squad was ahead, and she had been quick. She told herself that. The Varek strike unit pulled back under sustained EDC fire. 3 of the 4 signatures retreating to the outer perimeter, the breach closing. She tracked it on the display from her cover position. Retreating. Good. The 4th signature stopped. It didn't follow the retreat pattern. It stopped, and it turned, and the movement it made next was deliberate. The slow rotation of a unit reconfiguring for a different function. A beam of amber light activated from its dorsal array. Not combat targeting. The angle was wrong for that. The sweep too broad, the frequency too fine. It moved through the smoke in a methodical arc, not looking for bodies, not looking for heat signatures, looking for something else entirely, something she didn't have a name for yet. The beam reached her. The tone that came with it was nothing she had ever heard, not an EDC system, not anything she had in her catalog of sounds that had meaning. It sat at a frequency that felt specific to her in a way that made no sense until, suddenly, it made complete sense. The Varek scanner was locked on her. It wasn't sweeping anymore. It had found what it was looking for, and it was holding. Then the EDC line pushed the 4th signature back, and it retreated with the others, and the amber light went out. In the silence after, she stood in the thinning smoke and looked at her interface. Origin entry 3 of 12, locked, and below it, in amber, in a font she had not seen the system use before, external signature scan. Detected, source, unknown. She read it twice. The scout drone on the ridge in EP3 had not been watching the base. The probes before it had not been mapping terrain. The strike unit tonight had not come to breach the base. It had come because it had a location, and it had needed to confirm the location, and now it had confirmed it and left with the information. They were looking for the system. Her system. The signature inside her that the scanner had found in the smoke and locked onto and cataloged before the EDC pushed it back. She was what they were hunting. The interface dimmed. The amber notification held. She thought about the optional quest, the ledger, the cost of every choice. She thought, every ability she had used tonight had just been recorded by something that was not the system.